Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Motion in Motion. In this episode, we've got a big announcement, which is that HipByte has released RubyMotion for Android. It's currently in public beta. You can get it by doing sudo motion update and then sudo motion update -- pre. The most recent update using the normal update tool will bring you up to scratch with one that will actually let you use the -- pre option. When you use the -- pre option, you will get the RubyMotion for Android beta. But there is a couple of other steps that are required as well. These are detailed in the Getting Started guide, but I thought a nice little video would be handy as well. So I'm going to go through the whole update process for you. The first thing we need to do is, of course, open up iTerm and do our sudo motion update. So I'll do sudo motion update and type in my password. And a note is this screencast, because I want to try and get this out as fast as possible now that RubyMotion for Android is out. This screencast isn't going to be as high quality. I'm not going to go into the full-on editing. I am just going to quickly show you guys how to get this all set up so that way you have a video for any of the confusing parts that you might have a bit of a misunderstanding with. This will give you at least a little video so you can see exactly how to do it. So while this is loading, I am going to press pause and then I will be back once it's done. Alrighty, so we've now got the most recent version of RubyMotion installed, which is 2.33 as of this recording. And you can see the little message from Laurent and the guys at HipByte telling us that we can now use sudo motion -- pre to install RubyMotion for Android. So that's the next step, sudo motion update -- pre, and this will install the beta RubyMotion. So I'll need my password again, and while it does this, I'm going to swap back to the guide so I can just show you the next step. And the next step is to make sure that Java is installed, and you need at least Java 1.6. Java 1.7 should work, but we recommend sticking to 1.6. You know what, I'm currently using 1.8, so we'll see how that goes. So what I can do is I can do Java C - version, not -- as we're used to in most Ruby things. So Java C, I've got Java 1.8 installed. We'll see how that goes on this computer. It should be fine. Now, in the guide, there is a follow the steps on this page to get Java installed bit. And on here, there is a Java for OS X download. If you just press on the download button and follow the instructions, it will be quite easy to get Java installed on your computer. You guys as developers should be fine. There is also the other option of going and getting the most recent JDK, which is the Java Development Toolkit. And then you will have the most recent version, which is 1.8. After that, we need to download the SDK. This is easiest from the Eclipse ADT bundle. So I'm going to open that up in a new tab, and you'll get this page. I'm going to click on this big Download Eclipse button, agree to the terms and conditions, which of course no one actually ever reads. That's going to download here. I've also got another thing to download, which is the NDK, which we need this as well, and it tells us to download the 64-bit NDK for the 32-bit target. And so it's quite easy to find this. I should have clicked that into a new tab. It's quite easy to find this. We want the 32-bit target, which is this top section. You can also do the 64-bit target, but we want the 32-bit target. And we want it for a 64-bit Mac. So we're going to select this one here. Once again, I have to agree to the terms and conditions and download it. And these are now going to download in the background. I can close these tabs. All the instructions on these pages aren't going to apply to us. We have a different way of doing it for RubyMotion. Now, there's a bunch of stuff downloading, and once this is all done, we have the update going on for the RubyMotion Android pre-release. We have our ADT bundle, which will have our SDK in it. We have our NDK, and once this is all downloaded, I will show you how to actually get some of the basic packages you need installed, and how to actually place everything correctly, and set up your environment variables. And after that, we'll have a quick look at some of the sample applications and how to generate an Android project. Alright, so everything is now downloaded. And I've got my RubyMotion 3.0 public beta installed, as well as the as soon as my keyboard will actually work, as well as the NDK downloaded and the ADT bundle downloaded. So the next step now is to actually get these into a folder where we can start playing with them. The RubyMotion guide suggests putting it in a folder called Android RubyMotion. So the first thing we need to do is make that directory. So I'll do make directory Android RubyMotion. And then after that, we need to copy all of the stuff from the SDK into that folder. Whoop. Looks like there's I haven't unzipped this yet. So I need to unzip these first. Once these have finished unzipping, the NDK might take a while to unzip, in which case I will quickly finish up the other bit first. So once this is done unzipping, I can... There you go. Once that is done unzipping, I can now copy that into Android RubyMotion, and that's going to put it into a place where we can actually set this up as a environment variable for RubyMotion to be able to pick up on. And I've also got the NDK unzipping. That's going to take a little bit longer, so let's continue on. What I now need to do is I need to actually, as it says in the guide, it says, so this is after we've pulled out everything else. After we have pulled out the SDK and the NDK into that Android RubyMotion directory, we actually need to set up these two environment variables for us. So I am going to do vim ssh rc. There you go. And you can actually see that I've already got these in here from when I've been testing previously. So just copy and paste those in, and make sure that you've got them set up pointing to the right directory. If you put it somewhere else, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure you've got it pointing to the right spot. The NDK is now done unzipping, so I can go and copy that into the Android directory as well. But I can do that with this command, except the file name that I have actually ends with a B, so I will quickly I will actually change this a little bit. So I'll head on back and add B to that. and that's going to take a little while to copy. So while it does that, I'm going to show you the next part of this, which is if we head into that Android RubyMotion directory, once my terminal starts, there you go. So if we actually head into that Android RubyMotion directory, inside here we've got our NDK and SDK. We want to go into that SDK folder. Then we have the platform tools, and in here, oh, actually, sorry, I want the tools. In here, we have this Android executable. What this is going to do is launch the, if I can actually use it properly, what this is going to do is launch the package manager. So this will come up in a second. Here you go. So this is going to load all of the packages from the repositories that it has, and I'm going to show you which ones you need installed. So the main things that we need is we need the Android SDK tools and the Android platform tools. Now, there's also these build tools. I would like to have the build tools for the for all of these versions as well, just for the sake of having a bit of completeness. The other things that I would like, so I'm going to deselect everything. The other things that I would like in here, once I've selected these, so I want all of the tools to be installed. I would also like, and this is required, is the SDK platform for any API level that you're going to build against. So the API level goes from, I think currently goes, the lowest version you can get in here is 3. And this is basically the version of Android. So Android API level 20 is actually Android L, the system that's the operating system that's coming out soon and was recently announced at Google I/O. 4.4 and 4.42, 4.3, these also all have their own API levels, and so we can actually download and install. We need to download and install the SDK platform for any of those. You can see by default 4.4W is installed for us, but I would actually like to have API level 19 installed, and I'm also going to have L installed. Now, another thing that is recommended is installing the documentation and the samples. So I'm going to make sure that I've got the samples for each of these installed. So I'm going to quickly go through, select each of these. I'll only do these ones for now, but what you can do is you can go through and you can get each and every one of these for each of the different API levels. And if you so choose, you can actually go all the way down to version 1.5 of Android. Now, another good thing to install is all of these extras, because they're actually going to supply a bunch of good stuff that is going to help us out. You can see this is actually not compatible with Mac, so it's not going to install anyway. But things like the support library are actually going to give us a bit of access, and the support repository are going to give us a bit of access to higher APIs and parts of the SDK that we might not have access to on lower API versions. And we get also this emulator accelerator, which for me is going to be very handy because I currently don't have a screen sharing setup for me to do these screencasts. So the emulator is what I'm going to have to use. So I'm going to install the 29 packages here. You have to go through, and once again, you have to accept the licenses of these things. What you can do is you can just click on one of them and it will accept the whole lot for you. So I'll click install. This is going to download. It doesn't take too long, but it does take a while. While it's downloading, I'm going to very quickly mention what some of the other things in here are. You also see that you have these system images. These are used by the emulator to actually emulate the different systems that you can use. I'm not going to download any of these now. I'll download them once I need them. It's recommended to test on as many of these as possible if you don't have devices to match. I'll also mention that it is highly recommended that you test on a real device, not only for the fact of using your application on a real device and not in an emulator, and you get to experience it a little better, but also because it is incredibly slow to start up the emulator. It was mentioned at the RubyMotion Inspect conference that it is a very painful process, and all Android development I've done in the past, I've much preferred doing it on a device than on an emulator because it is extraordinarily faster. So, while this downloads, I am going to let that do its thing. When that has all downloaded, we'll be able to move on with actually playing with one of these applications. We'll create a, you can see down here, once I get to the Android section, you can see that we have a quick how to get started with a Android application. We're going to generate a new Android application, start that, take a quick look at the code. I'm going to show it in the emulator, which I will try to get started on screen and then pause while it starts up. But for now, I'm going to let this run and do its thing, and I'll come back once that is ready. Alright, so now we have this all installed. You can see I've got the platform installed for each of the ones that I had, and I've also got the support stuff installed. Cool, so now let's exit that template, the package manager, and the next thing that we want to do is start testing out whether our setup is now going to work. So normally follow the directions here for configuring a device. It's pretty simple. I currently suggest using something like the Nexus 7, which is a tablet and pretty cheap to get. You can get it on Amazon, I think, for like a few $100s, if that. Nexus 7. So yeah, it's $200 for the sort of very basic one. You can go up one by going for $230. And these are fantastic devices, not only for development, but to have a bit of play with, especially if you're used to doing using an iOS device. They're a really good introduction to using an Android device. So the thing, what you need to do is go into the settings app, scroll down to About Phone or About Tablet, and you will need to tap on it a bunch of times. You tap on build number. I think on the Nexus you actually don't have to do this. You can access the developer options from the start. And anyway, you eventually get to developer options and you check USB debugging, and then you're good to go. So what you can then do is plug in your Android device, and you'll be able to run Rake device from within your RubyMotion project. And that will actually run it on the device, which is much preferred from the emulator. So what I am going to do here is I'm going to go into developer, and I'm going to create a new Android app. So I'm going to do motion create, and then I'm going to just call this hello world. Let's say we can call this hello Android, and I'll just pass it the template option of Android, and that's going to create all of the, I've actually already got that directory, so I'll quickly remove that. So I'll create that again. Hello Android. So I'll go in there, and I'll take a quick look at what it actually created. And we've got our rake file. In our app directory, we've got our main activity. I'll talk about activities in a second. Then we have assets, resources, and vendor. And what I want to do now is I'm just going to run rake, and we'll see what happens here. Hopefully it actually configures a bunch of stuff for us. Otherwise, yep, this is what I kind of expected. We've got a bit of an issue here. So I'm going to pause for a second and then work this out and get back to you. So it was the error that I thought it was, which was the fact that I just hadn't restarted the terminal for those environment variables to take effect. But now you can see that I actually do have those, those set up. So everything is all good now and ready to go. But what's happening now is this is a little error that I got. I'm sure that I could also upgrade my NDK to support the Android L preview, but I actually want to test against API level 19 instead of 20, 20 being the L preview. So what I'm actually going to do is similar to the target iOS version and stuff we can do in our rake file for our iOS applications. I can open up my rake file in here, and you can see it also looks exactly like the RubyMotion rake files that we're used to. And I can just say API version equals 19, which is fantastic. And so I'll suspend that, and let's just run rake again. Oh, I meant to make that a string. Yeah. Whoops. Wonder what I pressed there to actually increment it. I've never seen that before. Anyway, so let's run rake. And you can see it's compiling it. It's getting everything ready to go. And then it's going to install. It says waiting for device. And this is where I actually need to do a little bit of pre-setup stuff, because I don't actually have a device ready to go. So before I get into that, I'm going to run rake t just to show you a few things. And so let's actually run this. See if I'm still getting to play with this, of course. Yet you can see that it doesn't actually have that set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a new emulator for us to work with, and then I will come back to you. So in getting ready for this screencast, it's all been a bit rushed because, I mean, I wanted to get this out as fast as possible to you guys. So anyway, what I need to do, this is quite a new experience to me, working with RubyMotion and Android together, and I haven't actually set up everything that I thought I had on this computer. So what we need to do is actually have a system image ready for us to use. The reason for this is if I go to, so this is that Android tool from before. If I go to tools up here and manage AVDs, which is Android virtual devices, I need to create a virtual device that will be used in the emulator. And before I can do that, you can see here, if I try to create a test device, I choose, for example, the Nexus 7, and I want to target API level 19. It says no system images installed for this target. So before I can actually continue, I'm going to need to install this system image. So I'll click install and accept the license agreement. And while that downloads, I'll once again pause and we'll come back after it's done. All right, so I've got that installed. That was the Intel x86 Atom system image. And now what I can do is I can go to Tools, Manage AVDs, and I'm going to click on Create. So I'm going to go Test Device, and that's going to be Nexus 7. It's going to be Android 4.4.2, which is API level 19. We've got our Intel Atom here, and the rest of this, I'm just going to quickly select some of these. I need to actually bring this down a little bit because there is not enough space. The rest of this I'm just going to leave as the defaults, and I will press OK. This has then created that device for me, and I can now go through the very slow process of pressing start on this. So I'm going to launch, and you can see here it's starting the emulator. This will take a while. What actually takes longer is not this process, but the actual startup of the device once it's later. So here you can see I've got the emulator. A little message has popped up. I'll send these stats to Google. Excuse the really poor icons. I'm currently in high definition mode on my iMac because it provides a better quality for you guys when I record. So the emulator is this thing here. You can see you've got all your buttons and everything. Now, the issue and why nobody likes using the emulator is how long this thing takes to start up. It's kind of like turning the coffee machine on in the morning. This is a extremely slow process, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pause while this starts up, and then when we get back, we'll run our application. Alright, so that took about 5 minutes. Now we've got our emulator up and running, and it's running very slowly, as you can see. It's absolutely, honestly, a pain to work on. This is why everybody usually prefers to work on their device instead. You can see it sort of freaks out and everything. Unfortunately, launcher has stopped. Fantastic. This is exactly what you want in the middle of a screencast. Anyway, so we've got our basic device working. Let's see if we can now get our RubyMotion application running on it. You should definitely be doing this on your device and not using one of these emulators. It is very painful. And there you go. I just accidentally exited that emulator. So if you give me a second, I will open that back up again. So after some more waiting, I'll unlock my test device. And we've got it sitting here. Remember not to exit this. So I'm going to open up a new terminal just so that way I really can't do that. And go into our Hello Android application. And now let's run rake, see how it goes. I do want to mention that I've purposely done this as a very raw tutorial. This isn't meant to be anything super clean and practiced. All I wanted to do was basically have something do the full install process, not do any practice, so that way I could show you guys the all of the issues that happened while I was getting it set up. And we have this Hello Android has unfortunately stopped. So let's find out what happened here. Let's run rake again. Waiting for this to start. We've got this same error again, fatal exception main. And you can see our application is coming up for a second here. But I think it's going to throw an error again. Yep, here you go. This might be an issue with the emulator. When I actually tested this earlier on my other computer, because I did do a little bit of practice just because I was very excited, but I did it on my other computer so I could show you all the issues that I went through and play with some of the new issues that I actually got on this computer. once this is not in an emulator, there's a good chance that this will actually work. I'm not sure why the emulator failed to do its thing. Well, all I can think of is that there's potentially some setting somewhere, or we don't have enough RAM. So I'm going to very quickly play with these settings. If it will ever load, you can see that it runs extremely slowly. So I'll open up settings if it will ever open up. Here you go, settings. I'm going to head down to developer options, and see if it's actually something like this. And sure. No. Always use GPU. Okay. Well, it's looking like there might be a few issues with this particular emulator. I might have to play with a little bit. But anyway, I hope this has been sort of a nice, quick introduction. Definitely do it on your device. I can't stress that enough. You can see just how painful it is using the emulator. I'm on the top of the range current 27-inch iMac, and I'm still struggling a lot to be able to use the emulator. So if you try to do this, I've tried to do this in the past on a MacBook Air, and it basically just fried my computer. Definitely give the device a try. I know for a fact that it definitely works on there. I will have a quick play with this, see if I can get it ready for you. And oh, hang on, actually, I may have one quick solution, which I'm going to go to developer options. Once it actually loads, here you go. And there is an option for, it's not going to let me scroll properly, which is sort of the issue here. It doesn't seem to have the same options as my Nexus 7. I also can't scroll in here, so there's no real point in me trying to use this properly. Anyway, so this has been a little getting started guide on how to use RubyMotion for Android. You can see that the emulator is definitely not the way to go if you're going to do this. I actually have a little bank of Android devices that I like to test on when I'm working on my Android applications. I'm really excited to actually start getting into this. This is going to be the start of my real playing with Android for RubyMotion, and I'm going to be playing with it a lot and sharing a lot of my experiences, sometimes as these raw screencasts, and of course as the proper professional screencasts that I usually do. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it gave you sort of a raw introduction to getting a RubyMotion app ready. The last thing I wanted to quickly show you was the main activity. So the main activity in a RubyMotion application is a Android app activity. So this is the RubyMotion code. You can actually see that this sort of represents what it looks like in Java, except we use Ruby's kind of class and module hierarchy and style of doing things instead of the different dot notation stuff. And you can think of an activity in RubyMotion for Android as a kind of controller in RubyMotion for iOS. It basically just encapsulates a single thing that's being done on the screen that a user can act act on. So that's a quick explanation of that. I'm going to go into more depth with activities and all of Android development in general in the screencast, and it's going to be an interesting adventure for both of us as we go down this path of testing out RubyMotion for Android. I hope you enjoyed this screencast. Remember to subscribe if you're interested in seeing some premium tutorials in the future. Thanks heaps for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode of Motion in Motion.